did that one on purpose.
The fabric of magic is unwinding. We are fortunate to be here at all.
And where is here, exactly?
Salem, Massachusetts. Well, a pocket dimension in Salem, Massachusetts.
Oh, suburbs. Nice.
Tom, we have been playing Marvel Midnight Suns, the new Firaxis game that is part card battler. It's a little bit of Slay the Spire. It's a little bit of Dragon Age. It's obviously quite a bit of XCOM. It's a walking simulator. It's a visual novel. Like the mix of stuff in this game. When we started reviewing it, we were, as we usually are with these things, given a review guide and sent like a video by the developer just to give us kind of a bit of a heads up before we dove into it. And the lead designer on the game was talking about like all the different elements that make up the game. And before I'd actually sat down to play it, I was listening to this thing and I was like, this is a mess. Like, what is this game? Like, you cannot have a coherent experience with all these elements in it. This is nonsense. Fully expected to go in there. And especially like because like everyone has mad MCU fatigue now, and this version of the Marvel universe that they've got in this game, it's obviously like their own kind of offshoot of, it's their own little pocket kind of Marvel universe, as most games tend to be. But like, it's clearly very inspired by the movie characters and everything else. Like the guy who plays Tony Stark is just Tony Stark is straight up doing an impression of Robert Downey Jr. and not a particularly good one actually, but
the same with Doctor Strange as well, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
it's they are they're very much like pastiches of the MCU characters. But so I thought, like, you know that bit in Red Dwarf where they talk about the fried egg chili chutney sandwich. All these elements are wrong and shouldn't work together, but somehow it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It works.
Yeah.
It's like we were just saying to each other, it's one of the best games of the year.
I can't believe how, because as well, the disparate, right?
Yeah.
The XCOM style battles versus like this like Persona 5 sort of relationship simulator, all set in this like downturned, horrible, spooky abbey.
Yeah.
With Avengers and mutants and the Midnight Suns on the occult side and the science side. And you're like, whoa, what is this? And when you approach it, the game, it kind of slow to start as well. So you get in there, you tentatively dip your feet in, and you're like, oh my God, what is all this? Information overload. Oh my God, all these systems. What do you mean I've got to upgrade my cards? And then like after about, I don't know, 2 hours maybe, you're hooked. I've put about 20 hours into it in like 2 days. It just grabs you. It gets you by the brain and it gets you by the heart, and it just kind of holds them both together. And that sounds kind of like overwrought and stuff, but I mean, honestly, it's...
No, I completely agree. Gets you by the brain and gets you by the heart is the perfect summary of the experience of like learning this game and becoming kind of... I wouldn't say I was adept at it because, like, you know, I'm probably really shy at it, but like this game makes you feel two things, right? First of all, it makes you feel like you are planning battles like a superhero would, right? It reminded me of the Mike Bithell John Wick game. You know,
I can see that
gun kata stuff where it's like you're not John Wick in the moment, like doing all this mad shooting stunts like in real time, but because it gives you the opportunity to plan those kind of sequences and then execute them in a kind of like a very superhero sort of way, you feel like the brains of that. You feel like the choreographer, right? I think is probably what I'm trying to say. So you can, when it all works together, and you've got like you got your Iron Man doing crowd control, and you've got your you got Ghost Rider putting hell portals in the floor, and then you've got your main character, the Hunter, kind of whipping people into the hell portal, and you feel like you're like in control of the battle. And it's like those bits at the end of like the Avengers films where they've spent 2 hours bickering, and then at the end, like they do all this really like they synergize, and Iron Man shouts heads up and flings something at Hawkeye, who hits it with an arrow, and then Black Widow does, and it's like you feel like you're at that point with working as a superhero team. You feel like you are like literally the brains of the operation. You're the director of the film, you know.
That's a really, really good way of putting it. And I think my favourite moments in the game so far have been I was taken into a battle. There's kind of a lot of preamble, like XCOM.
Yeah.
You know, this is the firaxis, like DNA.
Yeah.
You kind of do some stuff in the Abbey, the social stuff, which we'll come on to in a bit. And then you kind of go to your war table and choose a mission and then go and jump in.
Yeah.
And you've usually got control over most of the characters you choose, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But I was playing it last night, and I won't tell you where I got to because probably spoilers. But I was just hanging out with some friends, and then suddenly it was like, no, here's a big story battle. Here's like one of your new villains is going to happen right now. Like, oh crap! I've not really like used these characters. I've not really trained them up or anything. But because your hunter, your main character's level, kind of elevates those around her, you can be thrown into these like kind of like very story-based battles.
Yeah.
Basically, there's no rules.
Yeah.
It can happen whenever.
You can like 100% think on your feet, and you feel like you're doing it well. You know.
That's it. And there's three of us in this situation, and I was playing with like a new deck of cards basically because each hero has their own cards that you bring into the fold and they get to use. And then the hunter was, as you say, just whipping people back and forth, and mine's all evil, so she's like super powerful, but like takes a lot of damage and stuff. And then the two people I was with supported that really well, and I did this boss fight in about 2 turns, and I was like, oh my god, this feels like. It's like all the best bits of when you get a really good deck in Slay the Spire and you get to the boss at the end of one of the worlds and you're just like, right, I know exactly what I'm going to do here, bang, bang, bang. And that's also the same as XCOM, where you kind of constantly rolling critical hits, even though there's only about a 30% chance.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, my card draws are working out really well. I can do this, then this, then this. Bang! Boss is dead in the turn. Ooh, it's like strategy game catnip.
100%, yeah.
It makes you feel very smart and very powerful. It's just such a fantastic, compelling combination of things.
Yeah, it does make you feel smart, and I think that's one trick that when video games pull it off, that is like catnip, as you say. Like when it makes you feel like you are really good at this. It's why every sort of game or online game is kind of, I think Marvel Snap did this. Is engineered to like just throw you in amongst some like really crappy bots for the first like dozen matches, so you feel like you're getting good at it before it actually throws challenges your way. And just to touch on Marvel Snap actually, because I think a lot of people, because this is the second card-based Marvel game to come out this year, I think we should probably point out that this isn't Marvel Snap with a graphics budget. It just isn't. Like it's very different as a card battler. Like essentially, what I feel like is that it's my favorite firaxis game, right? And I think a lot of people are going to be. I think a lot of people might hear that and be like, "That's just newness bias. You don't mean that." But I do, and I'll tell you why. Like I'm not very good at strategy, and it's not like my favorite genre. There have been a lot of strategy games that I've got really into, but I always found XCOM a little bit frustrating, and I never found that I was given much of a reason to care about the people whose lives I was sort of expending in this military industrial complex that somebody had put me in charge of, right? So like, which sounds daft, but like, you know, when all your troops are kind of expendable and your base is essentially just an elaborate menu, it's hard to feel really invested if you're not super into that kind of thing, right? But I feel like what they've done here, because this is a game of two halves, you got the Abbey stuff, which is like you play it in third person, you're chatting to the other superheroes, you're exploring, you're finding secrets, you're making friends, you're like leveling up your friend meter, which has like bonuses in combat in the second half of the game. I feel like what they've done is that they've really cracked that for me. It's like firaxis have sat down and said, let's make a game for Jim Trinka where he gets to do all the like we'll make a big sort of creepy Abbey, and that's basically the Normandy, and then he'll get into all that XCOM shit, and I feel like just talking about the percentages in XCOM games, you know, that kind of frustrating sort of like, it said I had 75% chance of hitting it and I never, you know, What they've done here is sort of different, where like there are dice rolls, but they affect like which cards you draw, and they affect like your chances of basically knocking enemies into like hell portals and stuff. And there is a bit of a dice roll happening there, but generally, because these are superheroes, if you tell Iron Man to punch someone, he's gonna punch them. There's no dice roll element. He just, doesn't actually punch anyone in this, but you know what I mean. Like,
I think my favorite part of that is that as superheroes are, they are quite predictable, because that's the whole point. They've got their powers which you can draw on, and as you get to know them better, they get new powers that you can learn and use in the decks. And typically, the sort of progress is the newer cards that you get, or the more friendly you get with the heroes, the more specific the cards are. So when you start getting new ones, you're like, oh, I don't really see a use for that. But then you start seeing how they work with other heroes, and as your friendship kind of goes up across the board, you just... I hate this word because it sounds so prohibitive when you talk about card games, but the synergy, like when you learn that, and because the game will let you win even without good cards, and you can still do things around it.
Yeah.
You can walk into a battle and like do attacks that give you heroism, and that means you can do more powerful attacks, or my favorite, use the environment to batter people. Like if you're in there with Iron Man and Iron Man's got some proton beams, but the people that you're fighting maybe don't respond that well to photon beams or something, you can just have Iron Man like sling dumpsters at them, or drop like poles on them, or like you can use one of your other characters to push into Iron Man, who can then go like, here's my iron suit, donk. And it takes away the need from being particularly going in with a strategy in mind. I'm going to have my dark deck with synergy around whips or something. You don't need to play it like that. You can if you want, and you'd be better. But you can also just go in and play like a superhero fantasy. And like you say, being a director, I think is a really good way of putting it. You can play it like it's one of the big Avengers movies where everything's exploding and you're on fire, or you can play it more like one of the Netflix like street level things where you're going around and like hopping off things and battering people. It's all viable. It's all.
There's no bad way to play it. It's
exactly that.
Yeah, I think it really they've made something that really kind of wraps around whatever you want to do as a player, your skill level, your what your kind of predilections are for tactics and stuff like that. And it's really great for engineering these moments where you feel like it could go either way. The battle is teetering on the edge, and you're like, oh my god, like I've got like one of my guys is knocked out, the other two are injured, I'm gonna I don't have anything left that I can actually play. But there's been loads of moments where there's been like, no, wait a minute, I've got one hero point and there's a guy standing next to a crate, and I can bash this guy over the head with a crate, and then you win. And it's just like, and sometimes like all these battles often just come down to one sort of like pivotal moment where you're like, oh god, I just made the right decision at the end, and it all panned out. And you have like all the standard card battler stuff of like, as you say, like, some characters' abilities will complement other people's. I feel like Ghost Rider is one of my favorite characters. I feel like I'm always taking Ghost Rider out on missions with me, because I love that he's a combination of like, because he can open up these massive hell portals, and your hunter can, as I've said, like whip people into them. But he also is a bit of a tank and a bit of a damage giver as well. He has this brilliant hell ride ability where he jumps on the car and like, and it's like when you're able to, when you get a good sense of like, because I like damage dealing in games like this. I tend not to. I'm a very simple person, right? I essentially just look at the DPS and go, right? So, but yeah, but it's fantastic, and it makes, and when you look at it like on paper, when you maybe read a description of it, it can seem overwhelming, but when you're in amongst it, it just comes so naturally.
I do feel for the marketing team at 2K, because they get this game on their desks, and it's like Firaxis have been given the license and probably quite a lot of money to work with Marvel and this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't use Iron Man and Doctor Strange or Wolverine in a game without a bit of there's a big license involved, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so they've got to market this, and they've got to market it to Marvel fans and to people that like the cinematic universe. And there's definitely something there if that's your jam.
Mm-hmm.
But how the hell do you market a strategy card game and do it in a way that's like, hey, this is going to be big? Because we were both saying that it's kind of turned up, and we weren't expecting it to be genuinely very high up on my list of Game of the Year contender, like so high up.
No, was not expecting that at all.
The trailers don't do it justice. The marketing hasn't done it justice. Like in the hands, and I'm playing it on pad on PC. As you feel. Sorry, quick aside. Another thing, it feels great on pad. It feels so good on pad.
Oh yeah, I'm playing it on
game.
pad on PC as well. It's great. In fact, I kind of feel like, I mean, I might get crucified for saying it, but I kind of feel like it would probably not be as good on mouse and keyboard personally. It works wonderfully on pad.
Because the UI is. It's everything about strategy games boiled down to a really simple interface. It's really readable and really knowable, and that goes for the characters as well. I don't know anything about the new Ghost Rider. I was way into my Marvel comics in the sort of like noughties and early 10s, and I kind of fell off a little bit. So I don't know who Robbie Reyes is, and then I'm playing this game. I'm like, oh, this guy's great. I love him. Who is he? Like, Magic I knew from like I was really big into my occult 90s X-Men, so this game is like coming home to me. And so, like, hanging out with, like, Magic and some of the Runaways and stuff, I'm like, yeah, this is dope. This is awesome. Like, and the way that they also merge that with, if you just know Marvel from the MCU, you'll know the Avengers because they're there as a team that's had to join you, the Midnight Suns. And the friction between them and the way it kind of, like, sets up mutants versus, like, humans and superheroes and aliens and Kree and Avengers. Yeah. And all of it is done so deftly, you can just know it. You don't need to know all the mad lore of the years and years of comics. It just works because it's quite self-contained in this universe. Yeah,
it's good like that. It requires. I feel like if you have some, like, if you go in there with a bit of foreknowledge about certain characters, that does inform how you interact with them. Like I know just generally. Whether it's Robbie Reyes or anyone else. I was going to say Nicolas Cage then. As Ghost Rider. That the Ghost Rider character is that, like, being possessed by the vengeful spirit is not a fun time. And so, like, you have to treat that subject, I feel like, when you're talking to Robbie in the Abbey, you have to treat that subject with compassion and understand that, like, Robbie Reyes doesn't want you to regard him as Ghost Rider. He wants you to treat him like Robbie, right? So that's the best way to kind of interact with him. The Magic as a character, she's very abrasive, very frosty at first, but like you sort of learn that, like, okay, if I'm nice to this person, she's going to bounce right off it. But if you're like just very upfront and very kind of no bullshit, you don't sugarcoat anything with her, she really responds well to that. Tony Stark is very similar in some degree. Like,
my favorite thing in this game is pissing off Tony Stark. Like,
he's such a wanker.
I'm playing like the kind of, you're Hunter, you get the choice of being good or bad, and I'm being bad because the powers are better, but also it's really fun just running around and being quite curt with people. And Tony Stark hates it. You're not blowing smoke up his ass like everyone else is, because like, oh my god, the billionaire's here. It's like superhero Elon Musk is here. Oh, we must be nice to him. And you're there like, who the hell are you? Shut up! I know magic, you don't.
Yeah.
And he's just like really bouncing off that and getting quite aggy, and every time my little friendship meter with him goes down, I'm like, yeah.
and he's out of his depth as well, which is another, like, the Avengers have been completely blindsided in this story, and they've kind of ended up having to live in this pocket dimension, creepy abbey with occult magic-based characters in the Midnight Sun super team. So, like, it's really exploring that occult side of the Marvel universe, which the MCU has touched on, but hasn't like really fully gone into. It's doing a lot more of that now.
because it's even sidestepping some of the Doctor Strange stuff. He knows elements about the magic and things, but he's also kind of out of his comfort zone here, and in this this new world of like dark magic that isn't the sort of magic that he tampers with. And so it puts a really, if you've got MCU fatigue and you're looking at this and thinking, I don't know, I've just watched the Eternals and I want to eat my own eyes. Like, this is very, very different. Yeah. It's a really good spin on it. It's made me realize why I fell in love with Marvel myself as a teenager, because I was reading, or a little bit younger as a kid, because I was reading like the stuff about Blade, and I was reading the stuff about like Morbius before Jared Leto tainted it, and I was really into that stuff because it's a bit darker and weirder, much more ground level, and the younger team versus the more established Avengers, this scope on it mixed in with that gameplay. If you like Fire Emblem, right, bear with me on this one. It's like hanging out in a house is so Fire Emblem Three Houses, and then going into the battles is like XCOM Slay the Spire. If you said these things, as you said earlier, put those three things on paper, I'd call you an idiot. But here it is in your hands, and I'm sitting here now begrudging talking to you because I could be playing it. Yeah, it's one of those games.
Yeah, I keep thinking about getting back to it. I mean, I've got to sit down and write the review later, and it actually pains me that I'm not able to. I don't really have time to put any hours into it today, which pains me greatly. It's that good. It's that compelling. And like I say, I just want to reiterate, I'm coming to this as somebody who, I don't dislike firaxis games. I recognize that they are like masters of their craft, but they're not really for me personally, like XCOM and all that. But this is by some distance my favorite thing they've ever done, because they really cater to that side of the kind of stuff I love, where it's like I love characters and I love being in amongst it. You know, like being able to just sort of be mates with Spider-Man, you know, like, and you're on a ground level. You're like you're coaching Ghost Rider through a crisis of confidence. You're advising Peter Parker on how to integrate better with the team. You're telling Tony Stark to wind his fucking neck in. Like, it's wonderful. And I think sitting in a house and being sort of nice mates with everyone, like Barbie's dream house or something, and I say that not in a disparaging way. It's one of the best takes on a superhero game I've ever played, because like the thing people latch onto with superheroes is not the heroics. It's the and the Marvel films understood this from the get-go. It's about the personal stuff. It's about, like, everyone's favorite fucking Iron Man film is Iron Man 3, the one where he has like PTSD and doesn't actually spend much of it being Iron Man, you know?
And on the back of that as well, there's some really good Iron Man stuff in this, where there's an event that happens and the dynamic changes quite a lot in the Abbey. And straight away, this level of power that he has, this level of control of people just by being Tony Stark, it's reframed in an entirely different way. Mm-hmm. And I apart from maybe the Devil in the Bottle arc of comics way back when it kind of focuses on his alcoholism, I don't think I've seen an Iron Man story like that, except maybe, like you say, in Iron Man 3 in the films. So it's drawing off, I think, really the best parts of what Marvel lore is and what Marvel can do by getting the dirt under the fingernails of these heroes and ignoring that kind of like fancy sheen on fucking Captain America's shield, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely. It really plays with all that stuff, and it just allows you to be, you're on their level. Like, they respect you as a character. You are like an ancient hero of legend who's been resurrected. And I think the Hunter is a completely original character devised for this game, who's meant to be well, in my case, a daughter of Lilith, because I'm playing as a woman.
Same here. But tapping into that as well, the way that it lets you build your own hero, the character is, you're getting to know the character as she comes back, and it's been 300 years she's been away or something, and so you're finding your place in the world. But also, by making friends with people and doing challenges, you're unlocking more stuff, so you can actually make it the hero you want to be and make it look like how you want to make her look or him look. And I just think that's a really smart way of doing it.
Yeah, and you learn so much about the kind of the backstory of the character that is concealed from you initially, and you sort of peel back these layers of it. You're talking to like Agatha Harkness and So in the downtime between missions, it's like in the mornings, you do your training and you hang out with your sort of superhero pals, and you can do all that kind of Fire Emblem-y stuff with them that has a knock-on effect on the combat. As we say, this is a game of two halves. And in the evenings, I mean, as an aside, this game has a very healthy attitude toward work-life balance, because if you notice, when you get back from a mission, it doesn't let you do any work. When you get back from a mission, you think, oh, maybe I'll do some of that research. I mean, it doesn't let you. No. It's locked off. It's like, no, this is relaxing time. It's a really hard separation between work and so it's I think it's a very positive message there, actually. It's got a very anti-crunch philosophy to superhero management. But in the evenings, you can kind of run around the Abbey grounds, which are vast, by the way. And I don't want people I don't want people to come away with this idea that like you're just in a building. And the grounds of the Abbey are enormous, and you keep, like, as you play through it, it's got that Zelda thing of like you find something that can unlock certain kinds of doors, and then you find out there's even more stuff you haven't seen, and it just keeps expanding and expanding. And I'm at a point now where I'm just like, I can't believe the size of this kind of sort of open world hub they've got. It's full of secrets. It's full of not quite puzzle things, but it's full of like just
mysteries, they
things
call it,
to unlock, mysteries to little bits to unlock, shrines to pray at that unlock something else, or and you find little shortcuts around the place, and it's a really fascinating kind of area to explore, and it's full of beautiful views as well. Like there's this beautiful cliffside, and
so we're building a little pot here of everything it's got going on. We're making a big perpetual stew of Midnight Suns. And we can throw Metroidvania in there as well, right? Because that's kind of the vibe of it.
Yeah, you absolutely can. Yeah, it's got that, exploring the grounds of the Abbey and speaking to Agatha, who is a spirit in this game. I don't know if that's a spoiler or not. I mean, you find that out quite early on.
It's very early on, a couple hours.
Yeah. And she's sort of guiding you through... You're basically piecing together what happened to you 300 years ago, and you're also kind of piecing together what's happened in the time that you've been sort of entombed. And that stuff is so compelling, and it's essentially a walking simulator. You're just kind of walking around looking at stuff, and it just feels like, once again, it's another one of these things that grounds you in the world. It makes you care about this place, and it's tied with the history of Salem, Massachusetts, and it's meant to be a pocket dimension that kind of sits on the site of those witch burnings and stuff. So it's got that kind of like history link as well. It's just like, I think what I'm getting at is that, like, they've thrown everything in. They've thrown the kitchen sink in of stuff that I like personally. I think the only thing that I would criticize it for, and it's a really minor nitpicky criticism, I think you can tell that this team is not used to doing stuff where the camera is on close-ups with like characters, like hyper detailed shots of people in the mid shot, because like it kind of feels like the character models aren't really built for it, so they can look a little bit plasticine when you're playing it.
I think if they kind of kept that camera out, I mean, it works because it brings you in and it makes everyone feel very personable. Also, I think I'm a Disco Elysium nut, right? So if it had that kind of like higher perspective isometric thing going on, I think that would have made it feel even more, I guess, kind of toy boxy, but that would have worked for its vibe. But hey, they've drawn it in. It looks good enough for what it does. It doesn't take me out of it ever.
Oh no, not
I think sometimes it's amazing because, like you say, the characters, the suits especially, can look amazing, and as you upgrade and recolor them and stuff, that looks great. But then they're there with this kind of like uncanny valley Ken face, and it's kind of. But that, you say, very nitpicky for everything else. And if you struggle with that, just close your eyes and listen to the dodgy voice acting. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, there's so much stuff we haven't touched on, like the all the stuff that you have to kind of, well, you don't have to, but there's loads of upgrade paths for like everything. There's like dozens of little upgrade paths for like there's like intelligence gathering, and then there's like grabbing artifacts and training up your heroes and combining cars to make better ones, and
the paintings as well. It's this sort of thing,
yeah.
but paintings that like historically accurate paintings of 17th century art. Why have they scanned that in such high resolution to put in your bedroom? What's going on?
Yeah. You've got you've got that whole bedroom. You can like decorate your bedroom and buy yourself furniture and put a chandelier in, and for no real reason apart from like just doing that.
It's my room.
That's fun. Yeah, you got to go there. Like it's where you start and end each day, so you might as well kind of have some say in how it looks, and it's just another thing that once again just grounds you in the world and makes you give a shit.
There's like 8, 9, 10 currencies or something, and when I first saw it I was like, oh Christ, I don't care. And here I am now being like, oh wait, no, if I do this mission I get more of these credits, but if I do this one I get more gloss.
I'm always like, I need to get more gloss.
Like, why do I care? They've done such a good job in making me really, really care. And like, any game that's got more than 3 currencies, I want to usually just fling the disc out the window. But this one, I'm like, oh no, each of them is really imperative and a valuable resource that I really should treasure and just not spend willy-nilly.
Yeah, it feels it's just impeccably designed, I think. It's very, very well designed. And it's got like a wonderful fun factor. It just nails almost everything that it sets out to achieve, which is really remarkable given how much of a jumble it is, I think, is what we're getting at. And I think just to kind of finish off, and we had a chat about this yesterday, where we both basically realized that we felt the same way, that we didn't expect to like it. I absolutely did not expect this game to be. I thought it had 6 out of 10 written all over it. It absolutely does not. It's one of the best games of the year. It's won me over in a big, big way, and I don't think it's just because of like expectation versus reality. I think it's just that good, and I'm just really, really pleased to have been completely proven wrong by it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm at the stage now where I'm a good 20 plus hours into it, and I'm really, really jazzed about I think I've unlocked half the heroes. I think there's, from what I see on the screen, there looks like more. And I can't wait to be end game level, where I imagine there's going to be some challenges and stuff you can do, and just have this really powerful team. And I've not felt like this about a game for very long, where I'm thrilled to get close to the end so I can just sit in that world for a long time.
I'm just It's brilliant. It's just got the magic. It's got that magic.
With a CK.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, you should play it. And if you are, as we've said, even if you have like Marvel fatigue, which is perfectly understandable, because like I think we've all got Marvel fatigue at this point, it really broke through that for me just by doing something that was a little bit different.
Yeah, 100%. I can't wait for more. I don't know if there's going to be DLC or anything, but yeah, this has made me fall back in love with that world and these characters, and firaxis games. I might even go and play XCOM 2 on the back of this. God.
That'll work.